You are watching the World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bawa. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. India gets a 90-day breather on reciprocal tariffs. US President Donald Trump has paused reciprocal tariffs on 75 countries, including India, while imposing a steep 125% tariff on China in response to its retaliatory measures. Delegates from the United States and Russia will meet in Turkey today as part of continued efforts to normalize embassy operations between the two countries. Indian security agencies are braced for the arrival of Tahawwur Rana, being extradited from the United States nearly 16 years after his arrest for his role in the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. India and the United Kingdom have agreed 90% of their free trade agreement. Businesses were told on a call with negotiators this week. At least 124 people are known to have died when the roof of a Dominican Republic nightclub collapsed on Tuesday morning. Well, our big focus for days. Donald Trump and his White House team had insisted that they were fully committed to their decision to impose these sweeping reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries. They even derided a report on Tuesday that said that the president was considering a 90-day pause, news that triggered a brief stock market surge. But now that pause on higher tariff rates, with a few notable exceptions, is a reality. The reordering of the global economic order is on hold, and Trump's promise of a golden age of American manufacturing will have to wait, it seems. But the White House says that going big on tariffs and then hitting the pause button before entering negotiations with individual countries was the plan all along. Just listen in to what the US president had to say regarding this 90-day tariff pause, followed by my colleague Nick Harper's report from Washington.
Some economists are saying that right now is technically an embargo on China with 125% tariffs. Are you concerned of escalation beyond the trade war with China?
No, I'm not concerned. I think President Xi is a very smart guy, and I think we'll end up making a very good deal for both. But, you know, we've been treated so badly for so many years. Again, we allowed that to happen. We've been treated so badly for so many years. But, no, I don't expect that. I think President Xi is one of the very smart people of the world, and I don't think he'd allow that to happen. And we're very powerful.
A week of turmoil, a week of uncertainty, and a week of falling global markets. All of that changed this Wednesday when Donald Trump on social media said that he was changing course on tariffs, ending those reciprocal tariffs and instead returning to the baseline 10% against all countries around the world, except for against China. He said that he was increasing their tariff to 125%, really for the sole reason that they decided to retaliate and increase tariffs on US goods. Now, there was a suggestion from the White House that this was the plan all along. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, suggested that Donald Trump was the master tactician in all of this, that his plan had been to pause tariffs, and that was the strategy right from the outset. But Donald Trump himself acknowledged during a meeting with reporters at the White House on Wednesday that this plan came together very quickly on Wednesday morning, largely because of the turmoil on global markets. And the big problem we saw in the course of the last 24 hours, the impact on US treasuries and the bond market, and a very steep selling off of what is seen as a real safe haven for investors. And that really seemed to worry the White House. But there is a huge question about what comes next. For China, there is this potential of escalation of the trade war. We could see more retaliatory moves from China as Beijing decides that it will retaliate with tit-for-tat efforts against the United States. And for all the other countries around the world, it's now time to do a deal. The White House says that more than 70-odd countries have already come forward to say that they want to work out some sort of arrangement with the United States. But it's unclear if that will happen in this 90-day pause period, and if it happens, what exactly the terms will be for those other countries, because the US is saying it's going into this from a position of strength, where it has the upper hand at the negotiating table. There has been a cheer really from Wall Street. At the close, we saw the markets jump to their third highest daily gain since the end of World War II back in 1945. We saw the Dow up nearly 8%, 7.9% up, almost 3,000 points. The S&P up 9.5%, the Nasdaq up 12.2%, the biggest rally for the tech-heavy Nasdaq since 2001. What a difference a day makes for the markets. But will that continue through the coming hours in Asia and in Europe? And will that rally continue on Wall Street during Thursday's trading? Despite the announcement from the White House, there is still many questions about how all of this will play out. And of course, whether the United States can be trusted, because once again, we've seen foreign policy, trade policy being changed in the course of just a single post on social media by the US President. Nick Harper, NDTV, Washington.
Well, what a difference a day can make. For further clarity on the global impact, I'm joined by Peter Maguire at the moment. As always, Peter, pleasure to have you on our show. With Trump escalating tariffs on China to 125%, would you argue that this is a calculated strategy or brinkmanship with global consequences?
Well, I think brinkmanship with global consequences, and good morning, Parmeshwar. I think it's very hard from a trading perspective. I mean, you can look at it from multiple lenses. You can look at it from a geopolitical standpoint. You can look at it from an economic standpoint or a trading standpoint as far as trading equities or trading asset classes. And everything's got a different lens and how you, I think, interpret the data. But there's certainly a plus. And it's a big plus when you're looking at the likes of the Nikkei's up 8% as Nasdaq up over 12%. These are incredible gains. Australia's up nearly 5% today. I'm expecting big gains. Taiwan up 10%. So all of this is a very positive factor. These are this isn't a normal trading session. You don't get days like this in a lifetime. So this is quite incredible. And I feel as though it'll be fascinating to see how it unpacks over the next matter of weeks and what happens with China, of course.
Well, Peter, as you've put it, you don't get days like this in a lifetime. But China, of course, has called this entire process the US tariffs tax blackmail and hit back with its own. Are we then staring at a prolonged decoupling of the world's two largest economies?
I think so. I feel as though it's going to be delicate how it plays out. I mean, I listened to President Trump in the intro before I came on, and you played it. And I mean, he gave wonderful accolades to President Xi. I mean, he didn't say that he can't cut a deal. He didn't say he's not smart. He gave him the highest accolade that any leader could ever give a fellow leader. Highly intelligent, able to make big deals. So that's a positive. So let's see where this brinkmanship, let's see where this statesmanship takes us. But it's going to be fascinating how, again, over the next couple of either hours, days or weeks. But I know one thing. I don't think China can manage 125% tariffs. Yeah. And if I listen to Kevin O'Leary, I saw him on CNN saying he was saying 400% tariffs. So this could really escalate a lot further yet.
Of course. And as we speak though, Peter, JP Morgan says that a 60% recession chance still looms. Would you then argue that the markets are ignoring deeper risks beneath the surface?
Well, I mean, they're a formidable team, JP, and I mean, they've got analysts and they've got the best data around the world. If they're calling that sort of number, it's very hard to argue with. So I'm sitting here, I'm conscious of it, but the whipsawing in the market is so dynamic. Yes, we could end up in a recession. I want to see how CPI comes out of the States. I want to see naturally growth numbers from America and what's happening from the employment sector later this month and certainly into this second quarter. So I don't think we're there just yet. And of course, don't discount what the Fed's prepared to do as far as managing rates and expectations.
Also, Peter, would you then say we're actually witnessing the rise of policy-driven volatility as the new norm in global investing?
Yes, I do. I think that's a wonderful summary. very short, succinct and sharp because it's on the button. And it's on the button for this. We have gone from a Biden administration to a Trump administration, and it is game on. They're totally different. They are not the same operators. And we've seen that being how it's played out in the best part of 2.5 months from President Trump. Remember, the guy hasn't been in power for 3 months yet. And look what he's done to disrupt or challenge the orthodoxy. And that's really I think his mantra. And I think that there's going to be a lot of further developments across the landscape of his political life over the next couple of weeks.
We're bracing ourselves for that. Meanwhile, Peter, as we wrap, in an environment where headlines are driving markets, how should long-term investors navigate this noise idly?
You know, I think that if you're not out of the market, then that's a wise thing, because if you're in there for the long term, then I think that's how you've had to ride this out. And this is a real lesson.
Right.
And that's been demonstrated. And I think everyone's seen the screens and what's happened as far as price volatility. So don't sell, keep an eye on gold, and be conscious as far as all these moving parts over the next matter of weeks and months.
Well, don't sell, keep an eye on gold and be conscious. Thanks so much, Peter, as always, for joining us on NDTV. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you.
And let's turn our attention to the other big story we're tracking. Indian security agencies have braced for the arrival of Tahavvur Rana today. He's being extradited from the US nearly 16 years after his arrest for his role in the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. The National Investigation Agency has asked for a jail van to be sent along with pilot escorts to the airport ahead of Tahavvur Rana's arrival. Meanwhile, the Delhi Police Special Cell has been placed on alert, and SWAT commandos have already been deployed at the airport. In fact, on Wednesday, the Union Home Minister Amit Shah held a meeting with the External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, as well as the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, to discuss the preparations. So today is the day that Tahavvur Rana will be brought back after 16 years from the United States. In fact, the sentiment among survivors, among the families of the victims, has been of relief that he is being held accountable. Currently, we're being told that Indian security agencies braced for Tahavvur Rana's arrival. He's being extradited from the US nearly 16 years after his arrest for his role in the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. Late at night, the Home Ministry had issued a Gazette notification appointing a special public prosecutor for conducting the trial for 3 years. In fact, as you know, and I must take you through the Headley-Rana link, they met for the first time at military school in Pakistan. Headley moved from the US to Pakistan in the 2000s, is what we're given to understand. Headley then attended a Lashkar training camp in Pakistan. He returned to the US in 2005. Now he meets Rana, he shares the details of the Lashkar links. Headley and Lashkar use Rana's business as a front, as we have been covering. Tahavvur Rana helps Headley secure a business visa. Headley then visits India and Pakistan between the year 2006 and 2008. Rana is being held accountable for providing logistical support to Headley. And in October 2009, Tahavvur Rana and Headley were arrested. My colleague Ghazali has been tracking the finer developments for us. Ghazali, take us through the latest details.
So it is expected that around time Tahavvur Rana will be landing here in Delhi. All the security agencies, including NIA and other sister agencies in India from Mumbai, have landed here in Delhi. It is expected that he will be put up in Delhi for a few days so that his interrogation and investigation can start. This is a big for India, as we have been reporting, because Pakistan's link in the entire Mumbai attack has been established multiple times, but it will only be cemented more. More linkages will be explored once Rana will be here. And this will also lead to sort of help the agencies to expose more insider plot from Mumbai and other region to the people who supported Rana, because it has been reported that Tahavvur Rana stayed in Mumbai. He visited multiple locations in India, including Ahmedabad, Cochin, and locations in Uttar Pradesh, a state in India where Tahavvur Rana met several people. So those people who provided logistical support, or those who were in the know of the things that this terror attack was going to be executed, their linkages and their links will also be exposed once the Haburana will be interrogated.
Ghazali, thanks so much for joining us with the latest details. Well, in other news, delegates from the United States and Russia will meet in Turkey today as part of continued efforts to normalize embassy operations between the two countries. And the talks, which will take place at the Russian consulate in Istanbul, will not include any discussion of political or security issues. This is what the United States has said. The State Department spokesperson, Tammy Bruce, clearly said Ukraine is not, absolutely not, on the agenda. But to take this further, we have with us Ray Locker at the moment. Thank you so much, sir, as always, for your time. Officials have just said that Ukraine is not, absolutely not on the agenda. But can we take this for face value? In fact, what are your expectations from these talks?
Well, no, I don't think you can take that at face value. They're going to talk about whatever they want to talk about. I mean, and as we've seen over the last few weeks, months of the Trump administration, anything can and will happen. And sometimes what people say is not exactly what happens. We saw that with the tariffs. So, I mean, anything goes with these talks. I'm not really sure what they mean by normalization of embassy relations. I live 2 blocks from the Russian embassy in Washington, and everything seems fine there.
Right.
I'm not sure, about the US embassy in Moscow, but I think there's probably more on the table than what they're talking about.
Right. Also, even though Russia has so far failed to agree to a full ceasefire, and while Trump has been vocal about being very pissed off and angry with the Kremlin, he's yet to take any concrete action to force Russia to end its full-scale invasion as we speak. Ray, what do you have to say about the US's intention to broker peace as far as Russia and Ukraine are concerned?
I mean, I'm very doubtful that this administration is going to push Russia very hard on anything. Remember, last week when the tariffs were announced, one of the few countries that had no tariff on it was Russia.
Right.
We have imported things from Russia in the past. I mean, and there was talk about why did we put tariffs on those islands in the southern Indian Ocean? Well, maybe that China would try to somehow use them to ship goods to the United States. Well, what about Russia? It's right next to China. So there's a lot of things that don't really make sense in all of this. I would love to see these talks lead to a better world and something that ends the war in Ukraine.
Of course.
But I haven't seen much lately that makes me feel comfortable about that.
Right, as always, thank you so much for joining us with your viewpoint. We will, of course, keep in touch with you for regular updates.
My pleasure.
In other news, the United States imposed new sanctions on Iran days before the Islamic Republic's scheduled talks with Washington this weekend in Oman. The Treasury Department designated 5 entities and 1 individual based in Iran for their support of establishments that oversee and manage Iran's nuclear program. Well, let's turn our attention now to the India-UK FTA talks. Well, finance ministers of India and the United Kingdom have agreed to continue negotiations at pace to clinch a mutually beneficial free trade agreement and an investment treaty as they pledge to bolster comprehensive as well as strategic partnership. It also comes at a time when the threat of tariffs by the United States on various nations raised fears of a protracted global trade war. And trade between the United Kingdom and India, as you know, is valued at over £40 billion, with substantial foreign direct investments as well. Just listen in to what Nirmala Sitharaman had to say, followed by Stuart Smith's report.
It's a pleasure to be here for the 13th round of India-UK economic and financial dialogue. Our dialogue reflects the enduring depth of our economic and financial partnership. We share a deep commitment to economic resilience, financial stability, as well as inclusive and sustainable development. Together, we bring the strength of legacy and the energy of transformation, bridging tradition with technology and growth with sustainability.
The UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, said the deals covered defence, financial services, education and development. She said the meeting also helped strengthen government-to-government collaboration on growth and economic resilience, 2 huge priorities for the UK, which is trying to respond to US President Donald Trump's tariffs by boosting its economy rather than retaliating with counter-tariffs. Over $150 billion of new deals with India were announced on Wednesday, on top of around $350 billion billion in what the government called recent deals, including fintech company Revolut planning to launch in India later this year, HSBC Bank planning to more than double the number of Indian cities it's present in, Coventry University setting up to become the first English university to have a license to operate a campus in India, and India's largest digital payment app Paytm announcing it's looking to invest in the UK, particularly with a view to loaning to small businesses. London is very keen to secure a free trade agreement with India and is using these deals as evidence that Delhi is keen to do business too. But a free trade deal has been much harder to negotiate, with years of discussion under multiple previous British governments making progress but never quite getting to the finish line, with disagreements on immigration a particular sticking point. Stuart Smith, NDTV, London.
Well, news and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Do stay tuned. Well, let's get you the latest from Canada now, where a CBC poll says the NDP is projected to win only 4 seats nationwide. And as the new Democratic Party heads for a dismal outcome in the federal election later this month, its Indo-Canadian leader Jagmeet Singh has expressed optimism that he will retain his own seat in the House of Commons. By the way, the NDP is running short on funds and popular backing, with Mr. Singh having to use a bus for campaigning as other leaders fly around the country. And that bus journey has been mocked by some on social media as Mr. Singh's farewell tour. But to get in the latest from Canada, let's go across to Vancouver. My colleague Maha Siddiqui has been tracking the latest developments for us. Maha, we're given to understand that the NDP's Mr. Singh faces the stiffest challenge of his political career, but take us through all the developments we need to know.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Projections are showing that people want their votes to matter. And for that, they are likely to vote either the Conservatives or the Liberals. They do not want to bank on a party which doesn't have a pan-Canada presence. And they do not want to give a weak mandate to a party because they believe that would weaken Canada's fight against the US, against the Trump administration in the trade war that we are seeing between the two countries. And that is why the NDP seems to be losing ground, because people, the voters here, are not seeing them as a favorable option. Now, this is the province of British Columbia, where the NDP had got the highest number of seats or the highest number of wins last time. And what is emerging now is that even Jagmeet Singh's own seat could be in trouble. He is from an MP from Burnaby Central, though when reporters had asked him yesterday about his own seat and whether he's confident of winning that, he, of course, responded saying that he's confident about it. But the numbers at this moment that are being projected for the NDP look pretty grim. They had 25 seats in the House of Commons, and it appears that they may be left with only 4 seats. This is not just the CBC survey that is saying so. The Economist has also projected similar numbers for them. And this is a bigger issue than for the NDP, because for any party to be recognized as a party, as a serious player, they need to have at least 12 seats in the House of Commons. And it appears that this time around the NDP might not be able to garner that. Of course, the last say is that of the voters. But as I pointed out, this voting is largely happening in the shadow of the trade war with the US. Yeah. And in that context, the NDP seems to be clearly losing out here.
Maha, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the latest developments and contextualizing the latest poll for us as well. By the way, Ukraine's claim, meanwhile, that significant numbers of Chinese nationals are fighting for Russia's invading army is totally unfounded. This is what a Beijing official has said, as the US strives to secure a ceasefire in the more than 3-year war. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced that the Ukrainian military had captured 2 Chinese men fighting alongside the Russian army on Ukrainian soil and had information that significantly more are with the Russian forces. It was the first time that Ukraine had made such a claim about Chinese fighters in their war. Thank you for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.